Hi, hello, hello there. With the lighting on, you can really see what my hair has become, which, I loved my split hair, but I go through such cycles with it where I'm always, I used to be a short hair person, and every so often I will cut it all off again, and that will happen over the course of this YouTube channel, I swear. But right now, I tried to dye it silver, and, it wasn't maybe bleached enough when you saw it in that, the kind of yellow it was in the Save the Pearls. That was my pre-toner. We have put the toner in, it has become an interesting color, so it's supposed to be a metallic silver, but it is now sort of a silver gold, and in a lot of lightings it looks blue. And I'm happy with this, but it was not the intended color in the slightest bit. Anyways, housekeeping done on that front. Hello there. Welcome. I don't usually give a welcome, but now I'm giving a welcome, so hello and welcome. I have never heard of the book Possess by Gretchen McNeil. I'd never heard of that before, and I'd never seen it before until it just sort of stumbled upon it in a thrift store, which is how I find most of my weird books. And I'm wondering if any of you have ever heard of Gretchen McNeil or Possess by Gretchen McNeil, the book we're talking about, and I can kind of probably answer that for you and say, no, you haven't heard of this book. It was her first book, and she's gone on to write more which have been more successful. One of them, I've only read one other book by her by complete coincidence when I was like in middle school, and I didn't like it much, called 10. But otherwise, Possess is here just sort of as this failed start to probably it was meant to be a young adult like trilogy. It was definitely released at the time where there was a lot of paranormal romance boom of the 2010s. And Possess never had a series with it and exists as now this very odd little just sitting there by itself kind of book. I read this arc, actually, so I found it. So when it comes to arcs, that means, technically speaking, I'm going to read some quotes and things. It might have changed in the final release. I just happened to find somebody's arc being sold on. Possess is, I mean, it's surprisingly competently written with a solid plot-ish. You know, it's competently written-ish. There's nothing really that stands out as good about it. There's not a lot that stands out about bad about it. There's just a couple really weird things, because I have to talk about it because it is about a teenage exorcist who gets turned on by demons and has her dead dad haunting her as a dead cat. Yes, dead dad, dead cat. Both have combined into one in this scenario. And that alone as a fact means I need to talk about it. But hey, before we get into that, do you want to keep yourself safe from demons? Do you want to prevent your dead dad from possessing an even deader cat? Well, today's sponsor probably can't help you there, but it can keep you safe online. Atlas VPN is what's called a virtual private network. It's an essential tool for online privacy. Right now, there's this ridiculously good deal on $1.99 a month for a 3-year subscription, with a 30-day money-back guarantee, too. This is a limited-time deal, but it's ridiculously affordable. Atlas VPN helps you access country law content across the internet, from Netflix to YouTube. Like, it's so much fun to just go to another country's Netflix and just see what they have. But Atlas also does a lot more than just let you access hundreds of locked shows. It also has built-in anti-malware and anti-tracker protection, so you're going to be extra safe whatever you're doing on the internet. Thanks again to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this kind of weird video, and remember, now is the best time to get a subscription. That $1.99 a month for 3-year subscription, that's very affordable, and once you've bought it, it's like wham, one and done, no need to worry for 3 whole years. Don't forget, too, that there's this 30-day money-back guarantee, so if it doesn't work for you, you can, turn it back in that time. This is a limited time offer though, so check out my link below or go to getatlasvpn.com/crowcaller now and check it out. So let's get back to weirdly horny demon slaying. A hot wave washed through Bridget, starting with her fingers and washing over her body. It moved down her stomach, lower, and ignited a spark deep within her. The demon was turning her on. That was so messed up. Page 27. Okay, so, get this. There's a teenager, and she's an exorcist. Thinking on it, like, the pacing of this book is kind of slow, so that is most of the plot. This girl is a teenage exorcist. Bridget is 15 and accidentally discovered she can banish demons back to hell just by telling them to go. She can also hear their voices and communicate with them. She doesn't want this power, but is being taught how to use it for the greater good by a Monsignor, which is a high-ranked Catholic priest, sort of, from her Catholic school. A priest from the Vatican is also called in to assist, as there's been a string of possessions in the area. So Father Santos is from the Vatican, and then there's the Monsignor, who is just her Catholic school teacher. Bridget's dad was recently murdered by a man he was treating, and this man who murdered him had severe schizophrenia and what's called multiple personality disorder, which technically at the time this book was released was the term. The DSM-5 wasn't out yet to change that to DID, or dissociative identity disorder. But yeah, multiple personality disorder, that's not actually the term we use anymore, and never was a very good term. So also, of course, a bit of a shout out here. Yay, schizophrenic character with DID being a murderer. Extremely bad stereotype that's very harmful for those communities. Anyways, her dad was murdered by this man, and a few months later, now Bridget's mom is flirting with two men. The dad of Bridget's worst enemy, and the dad of the boy Bridget will eventually end up dating. So, either ways, her mom is really making Bridget in a very awkward situation. At school, Matt, who is the boy that she's later gonna date, is very overprotective of her, since her dad's murder, he's just well, your dad recently was horribly murdered, so he's just overprotective, and he obviously has a crush on her. But her old friend Peter also likes her, and Peter won't reject, he can't accept the fact that she keeps rejecting him. So, we're in a very classic YA setup all over the front. After Matt, the eventual boyfriend, asks Bridget to the school dance, Peter becomes increasingly unstable, and on the night of the dance, sends a series of very alarming, threatening messages before being found dead in the school's church. Let me read this, because Peter, as a character, was always written as this, he has a puppy crush kind of friend. He was just sort of a shy, awkward, he has a friend, but he's really struggling to accept that Bridget doesn't like him back. And then suddenly we get this, okay? The sight of Peter's face froze the words of explanation in her mouth. He was red, deep cherry red, and shaking. "I asked you first!" His shout filled the empty hallway, bouncing off the tile floor and metallic lockers before fading to a hollow echo. He took several steps towards her, backing Bridget up against a row of lockers. His lip curled over his teeth, and he grabbed her roughly by the shoulders. "You lied to me, Bridget Lou! You lied to me!" 114. So, Peter just suddenly changes his personality, and then he's found dead in the school church. And Bridget barely mourns Peter after this fact. It just sort of happens in the book not that early on, and then it just moves on. It's really unimportant and just this strange thing. So then Bridget is doing basic, little small vignette scenes where she's just, exorcising demons. And she's exorcising demons in a doll shop, when she gets this message from the demons to talk to the man who killed her dad, who turns out to actually be possessed by several demons. He tells her to not trust the priest, and despite demons, lying being a literal rule of exorcisms, they're demons, they're gonna lie to you, Bridget believes the demons that, she's being, lied to or manipulated by a priest. But remember, there's two priests in her life, so which one is it? Also, the guy possessed by several demons in the mental hospital, he confesses he didn't kill her dad. A ghost cat then shows up, which is her dead dad. I know that sounds just completely unrelated, and it is. There's just sort of suddenly a ghost cat that is her dead dad just showing up. The undulating figure of a cat stopped clawing at the floor and craned its neck around until it stared right at her. Tears welled up in Bridget's eyes. Staring back at her from the ethereal dust cloud of the phantom cat were the soft, almond-shaped eyes of her father. 297. And I do want to make a note right now, just as somebody with a dead father, I would really, really like it if my dead father never showed up possessing or representing one of my dead cats. I'm just gonna kind of put that energy into the universe now, because I can think of no more horrifying thing than a cat with human eyes. And I've seen some pretty horrifying things. Like, please don't do this. Anyways, Dad Cat helps her find her dad's secret notebook, which reveals that Bridget is what's called a Watcher. She's a descendant of the repentant fallen angels, and she has this power to keep the non-repentant fallen angels and demons in line. Bridget suspects that Father Santos from the Vatican is the suspicious priest she's not supposed to trust, the one that she was told not to trust by literal demons, but eventually learns out it's her mentor, the Monsignor, who can't be trusted, as he's actually a demon worshipper who is killing several people to try and summon a demon king using her school's church. And her school's church is secretly a pro-demon church where it's been architecturally designed to support demons, and it's been deconsecrated in secret. And, like, this is a church on a Catholic school's grounds. I do not know, like, anything about Catholicism. I don't know anything about Catholic schools. I really feel like somebody should have noticed this. I don't know what your job is when you're building Catholic schools or living at Catholic schools, but if you can't notice that your church has become a demon church, I feel like you're failing your job somewhere along the line. So, as Monsignor is summoning this demon king into the body of Bridget's 8-year-old autistically coded younger brother, she just sort of accepts that this is her big climax, that banishing demons makes her horny, and so she banishes the demon king. Then she uses angel magic to revive her brother from the dead. She and her semi-boyfriend exchange I love yous, and the book just ends. There's no sequel, there's nothing else, it just... Let me read you this climax, okay? Because I can think of no better way to describe it than some sort of weird... I've heard of Catholic guilt, and I'd really like it if Catholics in the comments could tell me if this is what Catholic guilt is, because I'm not sure. Bridget bit her lip. There were others like her, others who had felt the strange burnings in their bodies, the tingling deep within. Maybe even her dad? Maybe he'd felt the same thing. Accepted the same thing? 348, which I think that is a thing where Bridget is basically learning it's okay to masturbate. That is exactly what it sounds like. And then here, where she really fully embraces that being horny is okay and it's not gonna, like, send you to hell or whatever, we have this. Every inch of her body seemed alive, crackling with energy. The pain in her ribs and ankle was gone. She ran her fingers through her hair, down the sides of her face, across her chest, down to her hips, and back up again. Her fingertips lingered at her neck, caressing the soft skin, indulging in the teasing stings of electricity at each touch. "Oh my God," Father Santos said. 356. Santos is actually reacting to, like, the Demon King, but it's way funnier if I just kind of kept in the "oh my God," like he's just being like, "Oh my God, that girl is horny." Like, is this what Catholic guilt is? Are they just, like, ashamed of being horny? I think it is, right? I wanted to talk about exorcisms real quickly, so let's just walk in with a quote, okay? The first session was mainly for initial reaction, stating the patient arrived heavily sedated, and the acute schizophrenia and possible multiple personality disorder were the most likely culprits for his condition. Not a word, not a hint of anything out of the ordinary. But there wouldn't have been, right? Her dad couldn't very well have said Undermeyer was possessed by several demonic entities that only I can communicate with. 268. So... exorcisms, I mean, there's sort of just this elephant in the room when I talk about this book, and it's the fact that exorcisms are bad. Like, exorcisms are bad, actually. And I just kind of want to talk about this, okay? Because this book is Catholic-ish. I mean, Bridget self-describes herself as being a not very good Catholic, and I'd struggle to say that there's not really any, like, religious theming in this book besides, like, the existence of angels, demons, the Bible, Catholics, which obviously are religious theming, but it's not really like the overall moral or energy of the book is like a very Christian book. I don't think that, like, it was trying to be Christian, it was just more, it is Christian in a very passive way. But I don't think that, like, exorcisms are good, and this isn't a very radical take in my opinion, but I thought I would comment on it for your sake. Like, I don't think that most people consider exorcisms to be valid or particularly good or even necessary for being Christian or whatever. I kind of feel like in the modern day, exorcisms are just sort of not heavily embraced. I'm not certain, but there are people who definitely still believe in them, including exorcisms of people. And exorcisms are bad. Especially historically, exorcism has been an excuse to abuse mentally ill children and adults by applying a religious lens to their issues rather than a social lens. I highlighted, like, the not dad murderer who is demon possessed. He's considered to have schizophrenia and multiple personality disorder, or as we now would say, and better called, dissociative identity disorder. And I point that out for a reason, as both of these, or indeed them like comorbid together, are very likely top reasons for demonic possession through history. When we look at historical cases of demon possession, I don't want to be radical here, but demons aren't real. The people who have these cases of demon possession are mentally ill people who are usually manifesting their conditions in ways where, because they're not receiving help, because our mental health awareness and like knowledge of these conditions wasn't very good for a very, very long time, it manifests in a way that looks like it's some sort of religious thing. There's not actually demons in there. You're not exorcising and suddenly they're completely better. Both of the conditions are just so extremely negatively portrayed in media, being so common for like villains and scary people in movies, books, and TV. And schizophrenia and DID, neither are actually guarantees of violence, and in fact, people with conditions like that are far, far more likely to be victims of violence, as is the case of any mental health condition, but especially the ones that are considered scary by the media. It's way more likely people of those conditions are going to be victims of abuse, especially in mental health facilities like the very famously not very good psychiatric care can cause a lot of abuse for that, and religious theming on that, exorcisms, just can cause more problem. It's one of those things where both are not very well understood in our mainstream media, and both can seem very strange, manifest differently, and in a strictly religious setting, they can especially manifest in a religious-leaning way. It's the case of, like, schizophrenia, for example, is a genetic condition, but DID is actually caused by severe trauma at a young age, which, especially severe trauma at a young age plus a very religious setting that is giving you trauma, means that the DID can then manifest in a way that is religiously leaning. And it doesn't disappear. People learn to adapt better. Exorcism treats these sorts of mental health conditions as foreign evil agents that have to be expelled or cured in that way, which involves very traumatic, very intense sessions. These conditions, though, cannot be cured. You can repress your conditions like this to some degree, but not fix. There is no fix. These are just conditions that happen. It's one of those extreme pet peeves that I have, which I have obviously so many of them. But our portrayal of mental health conditions and especially schizophrenia, especially DID, is so bad in media. I mean, the fact that we live in a world where a movie like Split is allowed to just exist and we can't all call it out for being some of the most problematic, horrible stuff is ridiculous to me. Exorcisms throughout history, and especially in the past, could involve violence, beatings. There's recording sessions where they worked, and it was probably just extreme trauma, or it was like a social disease, like jumping lumberjack disease, or, you know, the people who danced to death at one time. The mind in extreme stress can cause social diseases where it's not specifically a real thing. It is a real thing happening, but it's not the same as saying like schizophrenia, for example. In extreme stress, the brain can just do very weird things, and where we have cases that are documented demon possession where somebody acted very weird, was exorcised, and went completely back to normal, it's more likely that that was a manifestation of something else that indeed might have just been a mental break that was more social in a way, like people dancing to death that one time. Anyways, the point about this book and this whole thing here is that there's just something kind of deeply wrong about using exorcism in your teen YA fiction and portraying as just right. It's correct to exorcise these people in this book because this is a universe where demons are real and physically show up and talk to you, and you then defeat them with your horny light powers. But in real life, that's not the case. Like, this is a work of fiction, but I don't like fictionalizing, like, a real dangerous practice and making it seem entirely justified. I realize some people do believe in demonic possession. I obviously don't. And as much as I'm always very religion neutral on my angel demon books, I really am, I have to just say exorcism as a practice is something I so disapprove of. It's just always been really, really bad, and it never isn't bad. And even in a world where we accept, like, a fiction book like this and we know, well, it's fiction, it's not actually harming anybody. If you're reading a lot of media and seeing a lot of media that portrays exorcism as a good thing and something that works, then your idea that you might accept exorcism in real life as something that potentially would work, it just goes up. Like, there is a correlation between fiction and real life, and exorcism is one of those things I think a lot of people don't think about deeper as something that is a real and extremely harmful practice. Let's talk about the characters for a second. Just, check them out, okay? Bridget is our lead, and she is pretty annoying. She's okay, and she sometimes has a bit of a style to her voice where she has some quips and sarcasm and personality, but her personality really leans on this, like, sarcasm and sass, this sort of thing that we had in, like, 2011 all of the time. It means that she's kind of unpleasant to everybody in her life. She has this major not like girls energy too, where she's always like, she wears combat boots, and all of her friends are boys. She has a gay best friend, and she's weird. It's just all of the time and really tiring. We still see characters like this these days though, so it's not even like this is a product of its time. We still have this, especially the girl hate. Like, every young adult book of this era seems to have a rival mean girl who's the most popular girl in school, maybe used to date or wants to date the love interest, and has lots of sex. There's so much slut shaming in books like this. It's this really catty stereotype that's just annoying. It's just annoying. It has all of the same tropes. Like, for example, I've read multiple young adult books where it's pointed out that the mean girl enemy has probably had a nose or boob job at like 15 and she's super rich, and her dad is also evil, but her dad will be like supernaturally evil where she's just like regular evil. I mean, it's just this stereotype where, like, God forbid that the bitchy cheerleader turns out to just be a regular girl like you. The nice guy love interest, Matt or whatever, he's so boring I have nothing else to say. The other one, character-wise, is Bridget has a younger brother who's autistic coded, so I just wanted to quickly, like, walk in here and talk about that. Because it is strange. He's never called autistic. He's never called, sometimes people will say, oh, he's gifted. You know, he's nothing like that. But he has several traits that make it clear he's meant to be autistic. It doesn't particularly read like somebody with a good understanding of autism, though. Like, he's 8, but he often speaks in broken sentences and does a lot of repeating things. He likes puzzles, and he does his 15-year-old sister's, like, math homework. He doesn't like to be touched, and he's bullied at school, and it's just sort of a bunch of stereotypes. They're all kind of real, because autistic people are a very diverse spectrum of behaviors. Like, touch averse, for example, is very real, and I don't see touch aversion very often in fiction. But it definitely feels like he was written by the author to be autistic, but without really trying to take the next step of actually thinking hard and writing an authentic autistic portrayal. Like, I don't think that any of him is offensive, and he's never called autistic, but it's really tiring to see the same tropes again and again. The main character needs somebody to protect, and it has to be a vulnerable sibling, of course, and autism just makes them more vulnerable. Autism, too, always seems to mean it's a boy who likes numbers and probably trains. Like, the author was somewhat trying, but just didn't want to commit to it. And I'm just sort of sick of seeing that in books and in fiction in general, because I know plenty of autistic men who really do like trains, and I love them because I also love trains and I'm autistic. But I know very little about trains, so the autistic men who know everything about trains, I love you guys. You guys are great. Trains are so cool. But it's really, really tiring how the only portrayal that we see of anybody kind of autistic is just like boy-like numbers and trains and not speak good. Like, Possess is this sort of odd little book. I mean, it's not offensively bad. In some ways it's kind of dull, but there's also, technically speaking, a full storyline that works, but there's just not enough angels or demons or funky things going on to really make it worth it. I still hope that this has been a lot of fun because there is stuff to talk about, and I really do like being able to talk about just like exorcisms for a bit. Maybe this was my excuse to go and talk to you about exorcisms for a bit. But hey, let's close this out on some really, really funny little quotes, okay? So this one here is Bridget's point of view, where she says she's talking to her boyfriend, Matt. I'm fine. Really. Yeah, perfectly fine. Except apparently banishing demons and making out with you gives me the same sick thrill. Perfectly fine, Matt. Perfectly fine, thank you. That's 287, and the horny demon stuff is still really funny. And my last note to close this out on is 2011's fashion, and how beautiful it really was. Matt wore dark gray slacks and a matching 5-button vest over a light gray shirt. It was a funky retro look, topped off with a short brim fedora in matching gray. Oh gosh, I was about to go and hit my stop recording button, but I just remembered something. Because of my weird angle that I have to film these at, you can't even see my shirt, and I always put on something, if I can, vaguely related to whatever I'm reading that day, and I look at this shirt. I hope you can read that. There, look at my shirt. Thank you so much. I love this shirt.